A black woman jogging. A suspicious cop. One of them's about to lose everything. And would you believe her if she didn't have a title? This officer didn't, and it cost him everything. It was 9:37 a.m. on a hot Saturday in August. The sun baked the streets of Silver Hills, a suburban community just outside Austin, Texas. Wide lawns shimmered in the heat, driveways gleamed under two-car garages, and American flags fluttered lazily in the breeze. A place where neighbors waved across picket fences, and the most exciting thing was the occasional lost dog or bake sale. Sergeant Kyle Mercer had driven these streets for over 15 years. Today, like every other morning shift, he cruised down Maplewood Drive, his hand resting on the steering wheel, the other hovering near his radio. His sunglasses shielded his sharp eyes, scanning left and right, looking for what he often called out-of-place behavior. To Mercer, instinct was law. He didn't need probable cause, not in his mind. He'd built a reputation for being sharp, aggressive, and not easily fooled. His philosophy? If it doesn't look right, it probably isn't. That's when he saw her. A black woman, mid-40s, running at a steady pace down the sidewalk. Athletic. Poised. Focused. Her posture was upright, her rhythm perfect, her breathing controlled. A maroon tank top clung to her back, sweat trickling along the curve of her spine. AirPods in, eyes ahead. Too confidently. She didn't look over when he passed. Didn't slow down. Didn't nod. Didn't do what people usually did when a marked patrol car cruised by, acknowledge its presence, at least with a glance. It was the smallest thing, but to Mercer, it meant something. It meant she didn't fear him. Or worse, didn't respect him. He watched the way she ran, steady, measured. High-end gear. Those weren't discount store running shoes. That sports watch cost more than what most rookies made in a week. Her earbuds were the kind his teenage niece begged for last Christmas. Something about it didn't sit right with him. Not here. Not in Silver Hills, where luxury meant legacy, and where unfamiliar faces, especially ones that looked like hers, stood out. In his mind, the narrative started building without conscious effort. Where was she going? Why didn't she make eye contact? What was she doing so close to that Escalade? He didn't know her. Hadn't seen her before on this route. And in Kyle Mercer's world, not being known was the same as not belonging. He clenched his jaw slightly. He'd seen the way these things played out before, not from malice, no, he would never call it that. It was instinct. That's what he told himself. That was the word that made everything okay. Instinct justified the unease crawling under his skin. He didn't trust her. Not because she had done anything wrong. But because she walked, no, ran, with a kind of freedom that people like her weren't supposed to have in neighborhoods like this. And that, more than anything, made her dangerous in his eyes. That alone Mercer rubs the wrong way. He pulled to the curb. Tires crunched the concrete. He stepped out, resting his palm purposefully on his duty belt, thumb brushing the holster, not unholstering his weapon, but letting its presence speak volumes. I was out front trimming the hedge when I saw her. She was just jogging, steady pace, breathing hard but controlled, earbuds in, focused. You could tell she ran often. Fit. Confident. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then the cruiser showed up. Didn't speed. Didn't flash its lights. Just rolled up slow, like it was hunting for something. Sergeant Mercer stepped out, one hand on his belt, the other hovering near his holster. He didn't say anything at first. Just watched her like she was a puzzle he didn't like the shape of. She slowed down. Pulled out one AirPod. "Morning," she said. Polite. Calm. His voice, though, different. Firm. Cold. "Where you coming from?" She blinked, confused. She answered that she lived nearby, just down the street. When he pressed again, asking which house, I could see the tension begin to rise. "Why do you ask?" she replied. She wasn't being rude. Just surprised. And that's when his stance changed. Slight, but I noticed it. Shoulders squaring, chin lifting. Like she'd said something offensive just by daring to question him. He asked for her ID. She said she didn't have one, she was jogging, after all. Still kept her tone even, measured. Asked why he had stopped her. Then came Mercer's response. "You were seen running past a residence with a high-value vehicle. It's suspicious." That made me stop. A high-value vehicle? In this neighborhood? Half the homes here had Teslas or Escalades. That wasn't suspicious, it was normal. She laughed. Not disrespectfully, more like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So now jogging near a nice car is suspicious?" That's when his tone shifted again. "Are you refusing to identify yourself?" "I'm refusing to be profiled." That word, profiled, hit hard. I saw Mercer flinch, just slightly. His voice got louder. He stepped closer. Told her not to escalate. Escalate? She hadn't moved. That's when she reached for her phone. She said, "I'm calling someone. I don't feel safe." And honestly, I didn't blame her. I've lived here 20 years. I've never seen someone pulled over on foot like this. Never. Her fingers hovered over the screen. And that's when he grabbed her. Quick. No warning. Just lunged, grabbed her wrist. Told her to turn around. Hands behind her back. She yelped. I'll never forget the sound. It wasn't dramatic, just shocked. Raw. "You're being detained for obstruction." That was Mercer's exact phrase. Like he was reading from a script. She twisted, trying to pull away. "Let go of me. You're out of line." But it was too late. The cuffs were already out. That click of metal, it was loud. Louder than it should have been. I froze. My rake fell from my hand. Across the street, the Wilkins' teenage son had his phone up, recording. Smart kid. Quicker than me. Mercer muttered something about stop resisting, even though she wasn't fighting. She was stunned. Breathing hard. Hands pinned. "Do you even know who I am?" she asked, and there was something in her voice that sounded like warning, not arrogance. Mercer didn't answer. Just clicked his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a 10 to 15 female, uncooperative. Requesting transport to 12th Precinct." He didn't ask her name. Didn't try to de-escalate. He'd already decided who she was, or more accurately, who she wasn't. He thought she didn't belong here. But I had the strangest feeling, that she belonged more than any of us knew. And I think he just made perhaps the biggest mistake of his career. The street was no longer quiet. Other neighbors came out to watch, curious. A teenager on a scooter stood frozen, staring at the scene. A woman in a bathrobe across the street held up her phone, recording every second. Everyone was confused about why the black woman was handcuffed. But Sergeant Kyle Mercer still believed he had the situation under control. The woman stood cuffed, breathing heavily, her chest rising with restrained fury. "You assaulted me," she said, her voice low but deadly precise. "You resisted," Mercer replied automatically, scanning the street with uneasy eyes. "You refused to cooperate." "I refuse to be harassed." There it was again. That word. Harassment. It rang out like a siren to the bystanders, to the camera lenses, to the now watching world. Mercer turned toward the approaching squad car, flashing its lights quietly as it pulled in behind his cruiser. But before the officer could even step out, a sleek black Lincoln Navigator rolled up beside the scene. No sirens. No lights. Just quiet power. It parked in front of a fire hydrant like it had every right to. The back door opened. Out stepped a tall, imposing black man in a tailored navy blue suit, his tie perfectly straight, a folder in one hand and a glint of urgency in his eyes. He moved with purpose. "Officer," he called. His voice was smooth, practiced someone used to command. Mercer turned towards him, irritated. "Sir, please step back. This is an active scene." "What exactly are you doing with her?" the man interrupted, eyes sharp. Mercer frowned. "This is an obstruction case. The suspect refused to identify herself during an investigation." "Suspect?" The man raised an eyebrow and turned to the woman. "Are you okay?" She nodded tightly, still catching her breath. "I'm fine now." Mercer's mouth opened to push back, but the man raised a hand like a judge silencing a courtroom. "You're making a very dangerous mistake, officer." "And who exactly are you?" Mercer asked, his frustration rising. The man pulled a leather case from his coat and flipped it open, revealing a gold badge, the kind Mercer had only seen once before in his career. "At the Federal Ministry of Justice, Office of Internal Oversight." Mercer's stomach dropped. The man didn't smile. Instead, he stepped to the side, gesturing toward the woman. "Do you even know who you just detained?" Mercer stiffened. The woman met his eyes squarely. "My name," she said slowly, "is Dr. Adrian Monroe. Deputy Chief Inspector of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division." The silence that followed was thunderous. Mercer's breath caught in his throat. His fingers twitched. The badge on his chest suddenly felt heavy, almost shameful. Dr. Monroe's voice didn't rise. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. "And you just laid your hands on me without cause. Detained me. Cuffed me. Humiliated me. For jogging." The crowd was larger now. Every camera pointed at Mercer. His name badge was visible. His face, his voice, his choices all recorded. The federal officer spoke again. "Sergeant Mercer, you will release her immediately." Mercer hesitated. He looked toward the other arrival officer, who was now standing still, unsure what to do. "Sir, I thought she was." "You thought she was suspicious? Because she's black? Because she ignored your patrol car? Because she dared to exist in a wealthy neighborhood? Tell me I'm wrong." Mercer couldn't. He reached down, hands trembling now, and unlocked the cuffs from Dr. Monroe's wrists. The red marks where the metal bit into her skin stared back at him like accusations. She rubbed her wrists gently, not out of weakness, but to make a point. Then she stepped forward, invading the space between them. Her voice lowered, "Just for him, you think power is your uniform. Your badge. Your gun. But real power is knowing who you are and what you stand for. You stand for fear. You act out of ignorance." Mercer looked down. "You put me in cuffs because I didn't flinch. Because I wasn't afraid of you. And that disenchanted you." He clenched his jaw. His world was cracking, fast. Then the DOJ officer stepped in again. "Sergeant Mercer," he said formally, "you are hereby placed on administrative leave pending internal and federal review. Please hand over your badge and firearms." The words echoed. Mercer's lips parted, then closed. His pride warned with protocol. Slowly, mechanically, he unhooked his badge from his chest, then his Glock from its holster. He placed them both into the officer's waiting hands. It was over. But not really. Because the worst part wasn't the cameras. It wasn't the suspension. It wasn't even the shame. The worst part was what Dr. Adrian Monroe said next. "If I hadn't had a title, if I were just another woman, would anyone believe me? Would I still be standing here? Or would I be in the back of your cruiser, silenced by your assumptions? He didn't have an answer. And that silence would haunt him more than any punishment ever could. Sergeant Kyle Mercer sat in the driver's seat of his now idle cruiser, parked just outside the Silver Hills precinct. The dashboard display blinked silently. His badge was gone. His weapon locked in the evidence safe. The familiar tools of his authority have been stripped in front of half the neighborhood and broadcast to the internet by now. But it wasn't the public disgrace that gnawed at his gut. It was the look in her eyes. Dr. Adrian Monroe, calm, clear, and completely in control, had looked at him not with rage, not even with hatred. She looked at him like he was beneath her disappointment. And that haunted him. He had prided himself on his instincts. On decades of street sense. On believing he could tell when someone didn't belong. That someone was dangerous. That someone was lying. But today, he had been wrong. Dangerously wrong. He stared out the windshield. Across the parking lot, reporters were gathering, as if they could smell blood in the water. A tall woman with a press badge was set up on a tripod. Mercer slumped back in his seat, his shoulders heavy. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in years he doubted himself. What if Dr. Monroe hadn't held that title? What if she'd been just another resident, without a badge or federal clout? Would anyone have listened? Would her story have even made it past a complaint form? His thoughts raced back to other stops. Other instincts. He remembered a teen boy on a BMX bike, detained for biking past the country club too slowly. A couple leaving a gas station at midnight, pulled over for matching a description. He'd justified it all to himself, to his reports, to his conscience. But now, those memories didn't feel righteous. They felt rotten. He remembered her words, "If I hadn't had a title, would I still be standing here?" The truth hit him like a gut punch. No. Probably not. He exhaled suddenly, the weight of his years pressing into every fiber of his body. His uniform didn't feel like protection anymore. It feels like a question. Across the lot, the doors to the precinct opened. Out walked Captain Shauna Vega, the acting commander while the chief was away on medical leave. Her sharp heels clicked on the pavement, her expression unreadable. She was flanked by two IA investigators. Mercer stepped out of the cruiser, his boots scraping the asphalt. "Sergeant," Vega said curtly, "you're to remain off premises pending further instruction. Do you understand?" He nodded once, curtly. "This is being handled by both internal affairs and federal DOJ oversight. There will be interviews, reviews, and yes, media coverage." Her tone softened just slightly. "If there's anything you want to say, now's the time." Mercer swallowed hard. His mouth opened. Then shut. Then opened again. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said hoarsely. "I thought I was protecting something." Vega's eyes narrowed. "What exactly were you protecting, Sergeant?" The question landed like a stone. Mercer didn't respond. Because he didn't know. That night, a live stream from the DOJ Civil Rights Division aired on national news and went viral within hours. The speaker was none other than Dr. Adrian Monroe. She stood behind a simple podium, flanked by the American flag and the seal of justice. Her voice was clear. Calm. Measured. "Yesterday morning, I was detained while jogging. Not because of any crime. Not because of any threat. But because I didn't flinch when a patrol car passed. Because I didn't look like I belonged. Because I was black in the wrong zip code." She paused, letting the silence hold. "What happened to me happens every day in this country to people without titles, without connections, without the protection of authority. It happens in silence. Without phones. Without witnesses. And without justice." Her voice did not rise. It didn't need to. Let this moment be a reckoning not just for one officer, but for a culture that equates suspicion with skin color. For a system where silence and submission are expected. And for every woman, every man, every child, who's ever had to fear the very people sworn to protect them. The room fell silent. Not from shock, but recognition. Millions were listening. The next day, Kyle Mercer walked past his mailbox, eyes down, ball cap low, and found a letter. There was no return address. But the envelope was crisp, official. Inside was a single piece of paper, signed at the bottom by Dr. Adrian Monroe. No threats. No lawsuits. No performative grandstanding. Just 12 words. When authority is misused, silence is no longer an acceptable response. He stood there on his porch, letter in hand, as his neighbor walked by with their dog. They didn't wave this time. They just looked. And then kept walking. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his breast pocket. Not because he wanted to keep it, but because he needed to remember it. 3 months later, Kyle Mercer will sit before a panel, stripped of his badge, speaking not as a defender of justice but as a man learning, painfully, what justice actually meant. And in the front row, Dr. Adrian Monroe would watch with unwavering eyes, not to see a man punished, but to witness a system begin, finally, to reflect. The cameras rolled. The lights glared. The truth, at last, had no more shadows to hide in.